Today, we're diving into an issue that's both shocking and infuriating: the colonial tax that some African nations are still forced to pay. Yes, in 2025, long after these countries gained independence, they remain financially shackled by their former colonial rulers. We're going to break it all down, but before we get into the details, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an important discussion like this one. Now, let's get started. To understand how we got here, we need to take a step back in time. Where did this so-called colonial tax originate, and why are some African nations still trapped in it? The roots of this economic burden go back to 1958, when France, under President Charles de Gaulle, began granting independence to its African colonies, but with strings attached. These newly independent nations were pressured into signing economic agreements that ensured France retained significant control over their financial systems. France justified this by claiming these countries owed a debt for the so-called benefits of colonial rule, such as roads, railways, and infrastructure. But let's be honest, these developments were never meant to benefit Africans. They were built to facilitate the extraction of Africa's natural resources: gold, uranium, oil, cocoa, and more, to be sent straight to France. And so, the colonial tax was born, forcing these nations to 1. Deposit a significant portion of their foreign reserves into the French treasury, even after independence. At one point, this amount was as high as 65% of their total reserves. France controlled their financial policies, inflation rates, and economic growth. 2. Give France first rights to their natural resources. If they discovered oil, gold, or uranium, France had the first option to buy, limiting their ability to negotiate freely with other nations. 3. Use the CFA franc, a currency entirely controlled by France. Now, you might be wondering, did any African country attempt to break free from this system? The answer is yes, but the consequences were severe. In 1958, Guinea, under President Sékou Touré, rejected France's economic control. In retaliation, France unleashed economic sabotage, destroying infrastructure, cutting off essential services, and even poisoning water supplies before leaving. Then, in 1962, Mali, led by Modibo Keïta, abandoned the CFA franc in favor of its own currency. But economic instability, allegedly fueled by French interference, forced Mali back into alignment with France. The pattern was clear: any African leader who challenged France's economic dominance faced destabilization. Fast forward to today, more than 60 years later, and 14 African countries, with a combined population of over 210 million people, are still using the CFA franc. These include the West African CFA franc, XOF, Zone, Benin, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, Ivory Coast, Mali, Niger, Senegal, and Togo. The Central African CFA franc, XAF, Zone, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Republic of the Congo, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. Despite being two different currencies, the XOF and XAF are not interchangeable. Worse still, both remain pegged to the euro, which means France continues to control their monetary policies. France determines how much these nations can print, where their reserves go, and how they manage inflation. This is nothing short of economic colonization. So, what's the economic reality of these countries today? Despite being rich in valuable resources, they remain some of the poorest nations in the world. The colonial tax has stifled economic development, fueled extreme poverty, and contributed to political instability. Take Niger, for instance. It is the 7th largest producer of uranium globally, yet over 40% of its citizens live in extreme poverty, surviving on less than $2 per day. Meanwhile, France's nuclear power plants rely on Nigerian uranium to function. The Central African Republic, rich in diamonds, gold, and timber, remains one of the least developed countries in the world. Burkina Faso produces some of the highest quality gold in Africa, yet its mines are controlled by foreign corporations, many of them French, leaving the country struggling with poverty and underdevelopment. The cycle is clear: these nations are locked into a system that ensures their wealth benefits France while they remain economically dependent. In 2019, there was talk of replacing the CFA franc with a new currency called the eco. This initiative aimed to give West African nations more control over their financial systems. However, the transition has been delayed multiple times, with the latest deadline set for 2027. The main obstacles? Political disagreements, economic disparities, and logistical challenges in uniting multiple nations under a single currency. To those working on this transition, perhaps it's time to consult Professor Dr. Abdon Atangana, one of the world's leading mathematicians, who, by the way, is from Cameroon. With the right mathematical modeling, this problem could be efficiently solved. It's time we start relying on our own experts. But not everyone is waiting for change. Enter the Alliance of Sahel States, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, who have come together to challenge the status quo. They're considering ditching the CFA franc and creating their own currency, aiming to reclaim their financial sovereignty. This could be a game changer. Will they succeed? Only time will tell, but you can be sure we'll be here to report on every development. Economic control isn't the only way France has maintained its grip on Africa. French military presence has lingered long after independence, but that is also starting to change. Countries like Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, and Senegal have demanded that French troops leave, signaling a strong desire to break completely from colonial influence. However, as France's dominance wanes, new powers are stepping in. China, for example, has been investing heavily in Africa, striking deals with nations like Chad and Senegal to build infrastructure and boost economic growth. While this presents opportunities, it also raises concerns about new forms of economic dependence. So, my people, I want to hear from you. What do you think about this colonial tax system that still burdens Africa today? Do you believe these nations can truly break free, or is the grip of foreign powers too strong? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm eager to read and reply to them where I can. That's all for today. If you found this discussion enlightening, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can keep this conversation going. Until next time, stay informed and take care.